Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And man, right now, it just seems like the markets are driven entirely by news. As a matter of fact, I was looking at the YouTube chats, and I saw Eva say, looks like the markets don't like what Chairman Powell has to say. Yeah, so news can be very important. But how might we track and even potentially trade the news using the Thinkorswim desktop platform? That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I do mean we, because I have a new friend joining me today. Her name is Kathy Wynn. She's a manager of trading solutions. We want to welcome her to the show, first time on the channel. So everybody give her a nice warm welcome. Kathy, how are you today?
Doing good, Cameron. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Would you mind taking just a second? Just since you're brand new to this and everybody else is brand new to you, could you give a quick introduction to who you are, maybe how long you've been with Schwab? Tell us just a little bit about your day-to-day routine, your work stuff, and then we'll get to this discussion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kathy Wynn. I'm an engagement manager on our trading solutions team here at Schwab. I've been with the firm for a little bit over 8 years now. In my role, I have the opportunity to work very closely with our trader clients in our one-on-one personalized education sessions to go over different trading topics, strategies, trading platforms, especially Thinkorswim. So I'm very excited to be joining Cameron today on Getting Started with Thinkorswim.
Excellent. Yeah. Kathy, we're definitely excited to have you with us. And as a matter of fact, everybody, it was Kathy's idea for today's discussion. You know, we were talking about this news-driven market, and Kathy said, why don't we talk about the tools that are available on the Thinkorswim desktop platform that help with tracking the news, and then let's connect those to maybe some how we might place orders to do some trading surrounding those news events. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Let's get into this, but of course, before Kathy and I can dive into those tools and demonstrations, the capabilities of Thinkorswim desktop, we have to talk about the risks associated with investing. And of course, we're going to throw out the other reminders to everybody. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. I'm seeing a lot of familiar names out there. Great to see Mitch and Ricebird, Kevin, Will, Michael, Marcus, Eva, Greg, everybody else. Thanks for joining us week after week. And if you're watching on the YouTube archive after this session has been concluded, enjoy the presentation, but be aware that you're certainly invited to join us in the live stream. This is a Wednesday webcast series. It kicks off 2 Eastern every Wednesday. We'd love to have you here. But I also want to let everybody know that my very good friend Kevin Horner is going to be joining us here in the chats. Kevin's going to be helping us with any questions that I can't get to during the normal flow of the presentation, or that Kathy can't assist us with either. If we can't get to those things, Kevin's there to pick up the slack for us. And we'd like to issue an invitation to you to make sure that you're following your favorite presenters on X. You can find Kevin on X at Kevin Horner CS. You can find me there at Cameron May CS. But let's get into this discussion. And let's talk about risk first. These are important disclosures. Bear them in mind. The information here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or endorsement of any particular security, chart pattern, or investment strategy. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as a sole means of investment research. Any investment decision you make in your self-directed account is solely your responsibility, and investing involves risks, including the loss of principal. Okay. So let's set the agenda for what we're going to be discussing today. Today is all about keeping an eye on the news, maybe building a trade premise around that, and how the trader might then go execute those trades, placing the orders on the Thinkorswim desktop platform. So the emphasis is going to be on news-related tools and then order placement. So what we're going to do is we're going to be showing you news-related tools on Thinkorswim, and then showing how a trade might be executed based on maybe a symbol that's found through that news tool. So let's go right to Thinkorswim and start to do that. And yet we're going to start off with this sort of ugly looking chart. Kathy, it's not a fantastic looking chart, is it? Been downward trending. Well, our traders are looking at lower highs and lower lows. Down today, and this kind of takes us right to the point, Eva had said, looks like the markets don't like what Chairman Powell had to say, apparently. Some people may not be familiar with the fact that Powell was even speaking. So, Kathy, let's do this as a first stop here on the platform. let's use the tools right here in the left side gadgets column, and it's called Live News. I'm going to pop up here. How about we borrow this gadget? Now, in this left column, if you're not familiar with the general navigation of Thinkorswim desktop platform, we have a series of headings here. And generically speaking, each of these tools are called gadgets. And what I want to do here is use the Live News gadget. So what I'd like to do, Kathy, let me take a step back. And if you would, just sort of use me as your hands, as our hypothetical, let's say we're one of our audience members who've never used this tool before. Just walk me through how we might find the Live tool, the Live News tool, and maybe let's explore one or two functions of that tool.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and just switch this quick chart gadget. So if you go over to the right side and click on that menu right there, and then you can go to switch gadget,
Perfect.
and then we're going to go down to the very bottom right. Oh, I'm sorry, to the left there, use Live News. Okay.
Excellent.
So I'm so glad we're going over this, Cameron.
Yeah.
This is very frequent questions I get on the platform. How do I really get relevant news on my portfolio? So this is a really great tool for that. So generally, you can see it's set for the broad market right now.
Yep.
We have the timestamp on the left there, and then the title of the news on the right. But let's say we want to focus on one particular stock. You can go ahead and enter a symbol up there.
Let's put in Apple. That tends to be a popular one of the biggest companies in the world. How about that?
Absolutely. Yep. And now this is streaming news just for Apple alone. Over on the right side, if you click on the gear, you can actually filter this news section to your portfolio. So a lot of our clients really enjoy just filtering it to their current positions or all position, or just like a custom watch list under their personal section there.
Yep. Great.
And then there's 11 different channels on our Live News. So if you have a particular source that you like to filter, if you go to all 11 channel up on the top there, Cameron,
Okay.
you can actually filter out which channels you would like to see, right? So if you typically like CNBC and let's say maybe Market Wire, you can just filter those out.
Okay. So yeah, if we like to see, which news provider is providing that stream of news, we can make that selection independently. And now you'll notice what's happened if I just go with that one channel rather than all 11 channels. It's very selective. We're just seeing the ones in this case with the little peacock next to it. Okay. All right. Now, one feature that I do like here that I think some people can overlook, I'm going to open this up. What we can do if we don't have quite enough real estate to look at our gadget here, we can widen that left column. And I wanted to use this search news by keyword function. Now, first thing I'm going to do, I could search the news that's just related to Apple, but how about we do this? In this case, I'm going to remove the symbol here and hit enter on my keyboard again, and that's going to take us, we're now seeing all 11 news feeds, all 11 channels across really any big news that's hitting the news wire minute by minute, tick by tick. And just as you mentioned, you can see those timestamps here. But Eva said, hey, markets don't seem to like what Powell has to say. Well, how do I find Powell? What about comments relating to Powell? Let's type in Chairman Powell's last name, Powell. And as I hit enter on my keyboard, it's going to think for a second. So I've gotten kind of accustomed to this. This is now scanning through all of the headlines, looking for just those that relate to Fed Chair Powell's tariffs discussion. And then if I want to see more details about this news, we can click on that and we can find any additional information. Sometimes it's just a headline. Sometimes there's an attached article for that headline. But just click there and we can track that news in more detail. Now, one other feature that we might do, let's just reuse this. A common question that I get is, Cameron, how do I see, let's say an analyst upgrade or an analyst downgrade? We might see other tools that can allow us to see that on the platform. But I'm going to start typing in the word analyst There we go. And you can see even as I get an incomplete word in there, the system is proposing keyword searches that might be conducted. We could do analyst ratings. We could do, what about analyst upgrades? So I'm going to click on that. And since I don't have a specific symbol in here, it's going to search through all symbols that have recently received an upgrade and list those in order of most recent to most distant. And so we could look at this and say, here's UWM, got an upgrade. So let's just have a quick look. I don't know what's going on with UWM. Or let's go on with, let's look for an individual stock here. Lockheed Martin, interesting. Got a Morgan Stanley upgrade. Well, let's do this. We've started to learn some of the features of this tool. How about you talk us through here, Kathy? Let's say that our trader just found an analyst upgrade on Lockheed Martin. Maybe they look at the chart and they notice that we're starting to push higher above a potential resistance area, and they're just interested in buying the stock. How do we go place the trade on the platform just to buy the stock? We'll get a little bit fancier, just so everybody knows. We'll get a little bit fancier with these orders as we go. But just guide us through that, Kathy, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we're already on charts, there's multiple ways of placing orders.
Yep.
I typically like to just right click directly on the price up on the top left there.
Okay, right up
And
here,
then you can
right
just,
click.
you can just click buy. And then there you go.
Yep, you can see that immediately sent an order to the market, and we own some shares. And as Kathy mentioned, lots of different ways that we can place that order. Another function, we can, of course, go to the trade tab and place a trade. But notice this little button right over here that says trade. That'll activate tabs right across the top, and this will stay on our charts. So some people like to have their news rolling over here. They have their charts right down here, and then they can just load up symbols as they see fit. Let's say I wanted to buy another, and the reason, Kathy, by the way, that I should tell the audience that went so quickly, notice this little box here.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Auto send that order. If you don't want your orders to go off instantly, uncheck that box. That's the default. Unchecked is the default, so don't be concerned. Also, this is a practice account. We should be practicing in paper money so that we don't have anything at risk with these trades. But we can place orders right here. Now, we can place a buy market order. We can place other types of orders. In this case, I just want to place a market order. Market order just means we're buying the stock. We're willing to pay whatever the market requires to buy those shares right now. There's an important reminder right down here with market orders. Prices can change quickly in fast market conditions. And do we have fast market conditions right now? Yep, quite fast. But those can result in execution prices that can be different from the quotes displayed at order entry. So just because it's saying 478 at the moment doesn't mean that we're going to get Lockheed Martin for 478 bucks. But in this case, let's do one other thing. Let's customize this to maybe just buy 10 shares. Let's submit this as just a market order, and our time in force is going to be good for the day. And that's the order that we want to place. Okay, so we're going to buy 10 shares at the market. There would be no commission on this trade, but there can be on certain types of trades. Then we could send that order off, and that's going to give us another fill right there, bought at 478.64. Okay, so we've learned a news-related tool. We've maybe found a few functions of that tool that some of our watchers aren't familiar with. Let's go a little bit deeper into this. I wanted to talk about a function that allows us to maybe place an alert for news announcements. So Kathy, how about we do this? Let's come over here, and would you mind walking me through maybe how to place an alert on a news event?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to stay with Lockheed, or are we just going to just do general news?
I think we can just do general news over here for now.
Okay. So let's see here.
Or we can specify the symbol on the next steps. One of the nice functions of this tool.
Yeah. We can just do it directly on the chart if you just want to like right click on the chart there, and then we can just go to create alerts there.
Excellent.
And then up on the top, do you see where it said price conditions? We can actually change that directly, and then we can go down to news.
Nice.
There we go. And then we have news from, so we can change our sources there. If you want to click on the drop down, and again, we can do all of our sources, or if you want to be particular, like earlier, we can pick a select few. And then over on the right for all symbols, you can click on that drop down. So yeah, you can filter this here to a particular symbol, or if you want to do a public or a private watch list, you can also set that, or we can just do it for Lockheed.
Perfect. All right, yeah, let's stick with Lockheed here. And we have, looks like we have a couple of radio buttons here. Notify of each new item from the selected providers, or just notify of the next news item only. So we can be precise there. Now, one thing here, Kathy, we have a couple of different ways that we can be notified. We can have a sound that's generated, but we can also send what are called push notifications. That's a text note or that's an email. But I don't remember having a text phone number established for this account or an email. How do we do that? So,
Yeah,
that when those notifications are sent, they're going to the right place.
For sure, we can absolutely set up your settings, your notification settings. So if you head up to the far right and click on your settings there, setup, yep, application settings. And then if you head over to the very top, notifications, and then you can go down to alert is triggered, and then you can set up the settings there. But yeah, your email and your phone number is on the very top.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I'm going to leave this with I'm not actually going to create and submit the alert for this account, but this is where we could put in that email. We can add our phone number here and have the notifications sent there. So it's kind of nice when we get those notifications, we can it calls our attention to a news announcement that we might be interested in, and we can go start to build a trade from there. Okay. But that's a couple of nifty features. They're not new. They've been on there for a long time. But let's also talk about a gadget in the left column that's called Use the News, which is what we're attempting to do today. And let me just ask my attendees here, how many of you have actually used the Use the News feature? A lot of interesting functions there. Kathy, if you wouldn't mind, let's maybe switch up our gadget. Could you talk me through that feature?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go ahead and switch our calculator. Oh, there we go. We switched the tool there, and then use the news is on the far right.
Perfect.
Okay,
and you know, one thing that I really like about this, Kathy, is there are 7 categories within this Use the News. If we click on this little tag up here, I don't know, what do we call that? A label or a tag? I don't know. It probably has some official name for the icon. But in any case, we click that tag, and then we have 7 different categories that are specific to the type of news. So we can have sector news, we can have industry news, we can have specific events like dividends being paid or some legal actions being taken. We can sort the news by asset class, bonds, commodities, equities, ETFs, and so on. We can actually sort by which session the news is being generated from. Is it the pre-market, the post-market, the extended hours trading? Or we have trading ideas down here, like an analyst upgrade, like we just talked about. So how about we do this? I'm going to uncheck that pre-market movers, which is what's being displayed right now. So again, to activate this tool, just launch the Use the News gadget, click on the little tag. And one thing that I've done, because there can be a lot of these checked, it can be quite a busy tool by default. If we have this all selected, let's clear all the categories. And I wonder, let's just look at analyst upgrades again, and let's save that. And right up here, we can see analyst upgrades. And if we click on the number, here are those companies that recently received an upgrade. We can see their price, bid and ask price, the mark or the current price. We can also see news links right here. So if we want to see what the details of that upgrade, we can click on that little news icon. But let's do this, Kathy. Here's a Caterpillar. I wonder what's going on with Caterpillar. Let me turn off this trade button. And let's switch over here to Caterpillar. I want to see the market's reaction to this analyst upgrade. It looks like it's kind of a soft reception here. Caterpillar trading around 290 bucks. But let's just put ourselves in the shoes of a trader who likes this analyst upgrade. Kathy, why don't you talk me through maybe placing a buy, let's call a limit order. Maybe the trader is looking to buy the stock, it's at 290. Maybe they want to get a little bit better price than that if they can. So how about we do this on the trade tab, just getting acquainted with some of the other tools, different ways to enter these orders. Talk me through how to maybe buy 10 shares of Caterpillar at, let's say, a price of, let's call it 288 bucks, a little bit below the current price.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's head over to the trade tab, Cameron.
Okay.
You can see there we have the last price, net change, bid ask, and you can just go ahead and click directly on the asking price right there at 290.47, and then you'll see
Perfect.
an order that comes down on the bottom of your screen. Yeah, let's go ahead and just minimize the left side there to give you a little bit more space.
Yeah, sometimes it can get a little bit crowded, right?
Yeah.
There's not quite enough real estate to have all of the features of this left column tool and also see the full order display. So I'm just going to hide that left column for a moment. That just gives us a clear view of this order that we're placing. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start with adjusting our number of shares right there.
Mm-hmm. Now, what my audience might need to note, is this looks like it was 10 shares by default. No, this portfolio is actually set up for 100 share trades, but the last zero is being a little bit obscured. If we have our settings set, I set this to a large font display so that my audience can follow along, but that can compress some features. So one little nifty feature is that you can click on the margins. When we see columns that are separated by these margins, go up to the column heading, and you can expand those margins. Okay, so there's 100 shares. Let's just take that down to 10. There we go.
Perfect. And let's head over to the price box, and let's go ahead and extend that a little bit too. It looks like it's a little cut off.
There we go.
Perfect. And then let's go ahead and adjust our limit price there.
Okay, so we were thinking 288, right? So what we're doing when we put in a price of 288 and it's a limit order, what we're specifically telling the system is we don't want to pay more than $288 per share. We'll pay the 288 if we can. Otherwise, forget it. We don't want the trade. That's what this means. Okay.
And then are we just doing a day order, Cameron, or are we going to keep it open?
That's a good question. Yeah, I get that question fairly frequently. Cameron, do you think we ought to be using day orders or good till canceled orders here? These are the two most common time frames for an order. And this can be an important decision. I think it's been my experience most commonly that traders just use a day order when entering a brand new trade or a brand new position. They'll typically use good till canceled orders on exit orders or just closing orders. The concept here being, if we put this on good till canceled, that literally means, hey, get me these shares for 288 right now, or maybe sometime in the future if the stock ever falls down to 288. And it may do that at a time when we've mentally moved on from this trade. We're not even thinking about it anymore. And then all of a sudden we're the proud new owners of 2,800 bucks of Caterpillar that we weren't even thinking about anymore. So yeah, for these sorts of trades, most commonly the trader probably uses a day order. So we'll just leave that there.
Okay, then let's go ahead and just confirm and send the order.
Okay. And when we do confirm and send, good habit is to read through these orders, just vocalize it. In this case, buying 10 shares of Caterpillar, $288 per share. This is allowing the trader to confirm this is really what they want to do, and it can help us avoid trading errors literally by reading these things out loud to ourselves. There's not a commission on this trade. But there is a reminder down here. The following order is expected to place the account into a concentrated position. Oh, looks like we have a lot of shares. Okay. Anyway, this is a reminder about a margin requirement, potential impact. So maybe we could scale this down a little bit. Let's edit this order. We can take this down to one example share. In any case, we're not going to be placing this trade. Buying one share of Caterpillar at 288, and we could just send that order off. But always make a habit of reading through these red bars down below. You can see it can call attention to important facts about the order that we're placing. Okay, great. All right, so Kathy, we've learned about live news. We've learned about adding alerts to news. We've learned about using the news. The news actually can also be streamed right there on our charts. So let me show that feature here. As we go back to our charts, we've used the Trade tab to activate these buttons up here, but at the same time, we might also go down here and click on the N for News down below. These right column tabs just activate individual features that can be added to our chart. So if I click on that N, nifty feature here there, Kathy, is that we now see streaming live news about whatever symbol we happen to be charting at the moment. So right now we're seeing news relating to Caterpillar. And there's that Morgan Stanley upgrade. Looks like it upgrades Caterpillar to equal weight. It did lower its price target. I think that explains the sort of soft reception for that announcement. Upgraded the rating, but lowered the target. All right, let's see. So another feature that I'd like to discuss today is the calendar. So let's go to that calendar. Where do we find our calendar of news if our trader wants to keep an eye on developing events more broadly here?
Yeah, we want to head over to the Market Watch tab, Cameron.
Okay.
Okay, so initially with the calendar, it can be very overwhelming. Like
Yeah.
you can see, there's just so much going on right now. So I like to start with filtering what I'm focusing on for that day, right? So you
Yep.
can see all the categories on the left there.
Yep.
So yeah, what are we looking at today, Cameron? Are we looking at earnings, dividends, splits,
Good. Yep, good question. I think you're starting in exactly the right spot. I have the same impression when you first load this up. If we've checked the show all, it's literally showing all sorts of potential types of news, categories of news. Yeah, dividends, earnings, splits, conference calls, econo day events, and so on. So how about let's look for maybe earnings announcements that are just around the corner. It's kind of a busy season. So when we check that box for earnings, this is literally showing us all earnings across the marketplace. And just for example, Monday, this would have been Monday the 31st of last month, 116. Kathy, is there some way that we can pare this down, maybe look at just the bigger companies?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and filter our list here. So on the left, next to enter symbol, there's a little gear. Go ahead and click on that, Cameron. And then
Okay.
do you want to filter it to like the S&P 500 or 100?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that. So what we might do here when using that filter is go down to what are called the public watch lists. These are watch lists of different stocks by different categories that are created and published to the platform by Thinkorswim. So how about we do just what you proposed? Let's go to the public S&P 500 watch list. So what does this do for us?
Yeah, this is just going to filter just the stocks on the S&P 500
Nice.
For April here.
Nice. So now we can just see the announcements for just specific days and only S&P 500 companies. And down below, we can even see what the estimates are for those earnings, what the actual delivery was. And we can start to plan for, let's say, future trades if a trader trades earnings. Not everybody does. Let's pick one of these, though. A couple of other functions. Maybe a couple of other functions that we might choose. Obviously, we've selected just earnings. Of course, we could have maybe selected stock splits, or we might have selected dividends that are about to be paid. Stock splits, there aren't nearly as many, and as a matter of fact, there aren't any in the S&P 500 that I'm aware of. They're just not terribly common. If we were to remove that S&P requirement up here, we're going to see quite a few stock splits. This is just something I wanted to emphasize in this sort of news-related feature. Most of these are going to be reverse splits by tiny little companies trying to prop their price up. So you're going to see, for example, CMCT is a 1-for-25 stock split, taking 25 shares from the shareholder, returning 1 share to that shareholder that's maybe worth 25 times more. That's an attempt to prop the price up. So yeah, that's one. Just a heads up when using this split calendar. But let's go back to our earnings, and we can sort these by day, by week, by month. Let's stay here on the month. And how about we plan and place just a quick trade for an S&P 500 company? Let's reapply that filter. Let's see who's coming up with an earnings announcement. You can see we still have quite a few. Maybe we even narrow this to the S&P 100. There we go. All right, so here are the great big companies. April 17th here. Who's coming up? AbbVie. Well, all right, so we've learned how to place just a market by order. We've learned how to place a limit order. Let's take a look at AbbVie. And I'm just going to hide our news here. Ooh, okay. So AbbVie looks like they've been trading down close to a support level. That earnings is right around the corner. What if our trader wants to buy if the stock were to rise on that earning announcement? Maybe our trader is waiting for the stock to get some bullish momentum. Here's a hypothetical for us. How might a trader place an order to buy the stock if it goes up beyond 180? That would be a buy stop order. Could you possibly talk us through that, Kathy?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's go ahead and click on the asking price again here, and then we'll have the order. So how many shares are we looking to buy, Cameron?
Let's just do 10. I suspect
Let's
we're
do
going to be
10.
getting that warning each time, but that's okay.
Okay, so let's go ahead and head over to the right side there under order, and let's go ahead and change that to a buy stop.
Okay.
And then let's go ahead and put in our stop price.
Okay, and we said we are going to buy that at 180. So with a buy stop, this is actually an order type that some people might think is wrong. Cameron, you're doing this wrong. A stop order is a sell order, right? Not always. In this case, what we're doing is putting in an order to buy shares if the price happens to pop up above 180. That might be the trader saying, hey, this is going up. That's what I wanted. Stop the bus. I want to get on now. So it's a buy stop order. But I'm going to get a little bit fancier here. Let's also put a time condition on this. When was this earnings announcement? Let me go back to our chart. We can see that earnings was around the corner here on the 25th of April. Wonder if we could put in a requirement that we're going to put in our buy stop, but it goes into effect on the 25th of April. How might we do that?
Yeah, so if you head over to the far right, it doesn't really appear until you hover over
That's
there,
right.
over the right.
Yep.
Yep, there you go. So you see that little gear. Let's go ahead and click on it, and we'll get into our condition order here. So if you head
Okay.
down to,
Mm-hmm.
yep, the condition, we can actually submit a time where we want the order to initiate, and then we can also put in a end time where we want the order.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's do this. Let's put this in. We have our earnings announcement on the 25th. Let's say our trader would prefer to not have to be there placing the trade at the moment of earnings or just before, even maybe just after. But one thing that the trader can do is designate a specific date and even a specific time. Now, this is our local time. I'm sitting here in the mountains of Utah. That's why you're looking at this and it says 12:33, and someone else might be sitting at Central or Eastern time, and theirs might say 1:33 or 2:33. It's our local time here. So what if I wanted this to go in, let's say 8 o'clock on April 25th, that would be earnings date. And specifically, what we're telling the system is at 8 o'clock on April 25th, buy me some shares if the price is trading up above 180. Now, if it's not, we could, as you mentioned, just set a time to cancel that order as well. Let's say we give it a few days. Give it over the weekend. We could set a specific time to close that order. But let's just click save. And one final
There you go.
adjustment I'll make here is to change that to a good till canceled order. But there we go. So then we can click confirm and send, buying 10 shares of ABBV at a buy stop order of 180. That order goes into effect on this date at this time. It's canceled on this date at this time if not filled. It gives us an estimate of how much that trade would cost. And I get that same warning that I expected. That's okay. It just has to do with the fact that I've used up the buying power in my example account here. But yeah, the following order is expected to place the account into a concentrated position. And with stop orders, there's no guarantee that the execution price will be equal to or near the activation price. That is a reminder that just because we say we want to buy at 180, it doesn't guarantee that we will pay exactly 180. In this case, if the stock gaps up on earnings, for example, and let's say it's trading on the 25th at 182, well, maybe we pay somewhere around 182. All right, so we're learning quite a range of news-related features. We have the live news, we have the create alert on news, the use the news, the charts news feature. We have the calendar now that can be sorted by dividends and earnings and splits and what are called econo day events. That's a fancy way of saying the economic events that are scheduled each week, like PPI and CPI and those sorts of things. And I'll let our viewers explore those functions on their own. But one thing that you and I discussed we might want to cover a little bit today is maybe we want to scan for some of these features. Marcus says, how long before this session is available for replay? I never know exactly, Marcus, but this is one of those webcasts that's scheduled to be added to the archives on our YouTube playlist. Typically, it's a few hours, maybe a little bit longer after a webcast is concluded. It could be as much as the next day, just depending on certain steps that have to be taken to get that posted. Every once in a while, there can be a technical glitch that prevents the archive from being posted to the YouTube channel entirely. But Kathy, let's do this. Some traders may just want to go scan the marketplace for specific stocks that exhibit specific characteristics that also have things like a dividend coming up or an earnings announcement. And it may not be just that they're a member of the S&P 500. So how about we go do a scan for some news?
Yeah, sounds great, Cameron. Let's go to scan.
Okay. And I think we're going to do
stock
scan just for stocks. Yeah, let's use the stock hacker. Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you'll forgive me, I'm going to fill in these first few. Sorry I cheated. I thought through this in advance, if you can believe it. And let's just get in the mind of our hypothetical investor here and say, maybe they're looking for just some kind of larger capitalization stocks that are also paying some dividends as a pre-qualifier. But then I'm going to have you sort of guide me through how to search for the events that are coming up that are related to these stocks. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in some basic characteristics. So the whole purpose here, for those that are watching, this is a scan is kind of like a search or a filter where a trader has in mind the sorts of stocks that they'd be interested in trading if they could just find them. We just need to be able to describe those to the Thinkorswim desktop software, and then it can go out and locate those for us. So when we go to the stock hacker, we have some menus here that allow us to start to describe these imagined stocks. So first thing I'm going to do, how about we say we're looking for some big companies? And so I'm going to select market cap. Now this is displayed in millions of dollars. So if I were to put in as a minimum, for example, 5,000, that's 5,000 million, or in other words, that's a $5 billion company. Now, generally speaking, companies under $2 billion are kind of small cap. Companies over $10 billion are kind of large cap. 5 billion would be mid-range for the mid-cap stocks. So let's just go with that as our minimum. And let's also say that our trader is looking for stocks that have at least a minimum price per share. So from our menu, I'm going to choose MARK, which means it's an abbreviation. On Thinkorswim, MARK means the market price. So let's set as our minimum 50. That's $50 per share. So we're looking for $5 billion companies priced at least $50 per share. And let's say that our trader is interested in dividend paying companies. So from the menu again, I'm going to select yield. That's our dividend yield. And let's say that we're looking for at least, average is a little bit less than 2%. So let's say we're looking for 2%. So if I were to click scan at this point, this is going to look for $5 billion companies, at least $50 per share with a 2% yield. There are going to be a ton of them. I'm pretty confident. Yep, there are lots of those. So Kathy, what if we wanted to look for those kinds of companies, but where, let's say there's a dividend announcement or a dividend that's due to be paid soon. So not just a 2% yield, but a dividend that should be paid fairly soon. How might we look for that?
Let's do that. You want to head over to the top right and click on Add Filter there.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to go ahead down to Study Filter.
Great.
Okay. And then you'll see the default, which is the ADX crossover. We're just going to click on the drop down there and then go up to Corporate Actions. And let's go ahead and select Dividend.
Nice.
Okay. And then we have the option there where you can pick, a certain amount date before the X date there, or you can click on the drop down and change that option also.
Got it. All right. So how about we say for these companies, these mid-cap companies with a 2% yield price at least $50, we want to find those that have an X dividend date, meaning that's the date we can no longer, if we buy it on that date or after, we don't get this round of dividends. Let's say we have an X dividend date that's coming up in, I don't know how demanding I can be. It always just depends on market conditions here. Let's go for the next 3 days. We're just exploring here. Let's run a quick scan and see if we have any coming up in the next 3 days. Yep. So if our trader was interested in finding stocks that are just due to pay dividends, here they are. At least these are the ones that meet our characteristics. Obviously, these are just example characteristics. And I should also mention, I get the question from time to time, maybe, Cameron, wouldn't it be a cool idea to just buy the stock right before the dividend, right before the ex-dividend date, wait till ex-dividend, and then sell the stock? And now I get the dividend and I don't have to have the exposure of the stock ownership. Not always a good strategy because the stock price is adjusted downward on the ex-dividend date by the amount of the dividend. So it's not as big of a free lunch as somebody might initially think it is. Just be aware. But of course, other market conditions can drive price up independently of the adjustment. But just be aware of that. So Kathy, that's a nifty little feature. Let's remove this requirement. And how might we look for something? Maybe we want to get dividends, but we're trying to dodge earnings announcements. How do we find the ones where the earnings announcements are right around the corner?
Yeah, it's going to be in the same location, Cameron. So if we go back to Add Filter there on the top right, go down to a Study Filter, and then let's click on that drop down for ADX and Corporate Actions, and we can head over to Earnings on the second one there.
Okay. And we can see here now, it says earnings. It has an earnings announcement anytime in the next so many, it says bars. Bars, if we've selected days, it's in the next 10 days, right? All right, well, let's see which ones of these companies have earnings. And this might be to avoid earnings. It might also, for some traders, they build trades around earnings, like specifically to take advantage of earnings. But let's run our scan. And in the next 10 days of these companies, there are a bunch of them that actually have an earnings announcement. If we switch this to just 3 days and run scan again, it's going to be fewer, but still a good number. All right. David says that's a cool feature. They adjust it up when a company declares the dividend. Now, David, the price is only adjusted downward on ex-dividend date. But guys, with that, we've actually accomplished what Kathy and I set out to do today. We wanted to talk through some of these news-related features that allow the trader who's keeping a keen eye on what's happening in the news, how they can track all that on the Thinkorswim desktop platform. I think there's going to be some new stuff for some of you here. Might be time to go to your paper money and practice exploring with these things. We've just scratched the surface of the functionality of some of these, some of the capabilities of the platform. Don't be afraid in your paper money to get in there, experiment. But this is what we do in these Wednesday webcasts. So I hope that you put it in your calendar to join me each week on Wednesday. Also, make sure that you have subscribed to our YouTube channel. If you haven't done that yet, just go down below the video stream and click on the subscribe button. But the YouTube channel is where we house our completed webcasts. The vast majority of our webcasts are posted to our YouTube channel. So subscribe there. Also, make sure that you're following Kevin and me on X. Thanks, Kevin, for helping out. You can follow Kevin there at Kevin Horner CS. You can follow me there at Cameron May CS. But Kathy, thanks for your help. I hope to do this again. I think that'd be fun. Everybody else, thanks for watching. Thanks for the thumbs up, the likes that I see out there. I'll see you in a future webcast. I'll also look for you on X, but whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.